Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here. Just wanted to give a quick introduction. My name is Jen Van Berkleo. I am the event director for EXP, so we really do appreciate your time and attention while attending the EXPI Shareholder Summit. You are here for the fireside chat with Gina Bianchini with Mighty Networks and Courtney Shockeron, who is our CMO. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Courtney, who will then go ahead and introduce Gina. As CMO for EXP World Holdings, Courtney is responsible for amplifying the EXP brands and overseeing all of our areas of marketing, including driving digital strategy for growth and enhancing EXP's value proposition. She's a recognized thought leader in consumer lending, housing, and digital transformation, and was named a Housing Wire Rising Star in 2016 and a Woman of Influence in 2019. Courtney has over 2 decades of marketing and innovation experience and has held various leadership roles at Roostify, CoreLogic, and General Electric. So it's my pleasure to introduce my boss and our Chief Marketing Officer, Courtney Shockeron.
Jen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. How's it going? All right. And by the way, feel free to pop in any sort of chats if you have any questions along the way. I'm obviously super excited to introduce Gina today. She is the founder and CEO of Mighty Networks. Her mission is really to define a new era of creative business built on community. And, if you take a look and Google her, Gina Bianchini, what you're going to see is somebody who's highly accomplished on the cover of Fortune, on the cover of Fast Company, been in Wired, Vanity Fair, Bloomberg, and New York Times, and now with us, right? So Gina, welcome.
Thank you for having me. As you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, and now coming to you from the sunroom in my house in Palo Alto, as all of us are today. It's really exciting and super fun to be here with everybody.
Yes. Now you're
by the way, my first time doing a session like this in this kind of immersive virtual world, and it's awesome. I have an avatar, whole thing.
We're hybrid avatars, right, in video. So we got everything going for us today. I had talked a little bit about, the audience of shareholders here today, which makes up a lot of our great agents, folks from Success, folks from Verbella. And I know that they were very keen to learn a little bit more about Mighty Networks and your inspiration behind the catalyst in creating this community, this offering.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mighty Networks is a platform for people to create amazing businesses, online courses, subscriptions, events, all powered by community. And the reason we are so passionate about community as this force for good, this force for realizing our fullest potential in business is because if you think about it, a community is the single most effective, most powerful way for us to create results and transformation in our lives. It's the single best way for people to learn something. It's the single best way for people to build new habits and practices that ultimately create changes in results and transformation in our lives. And I think that this has been so true over the last year. It is a community is the single best way to navigate rapid change, a dynamic environment, or really just, an unknown frontier. And so my passion, going back to certainly when I was a kid, and then certainly, from the early days of social media to now, has been, how do we unlock a world where there are millions of unique, vibrant communities led by brands, creators, coaches, where the community is there to master something interesting or important together and can be fueled and funded by digital subscriptions, digital payments, or some other business model, because what we know is that people pay attention to what they pay for. And so if our mission and our goal is to get people results and transformation that they cannot get on their own, or is a lot harder to get on our own, then having a business model associated with it just unlocks so much more value and so much more just beauty and amazingness, to the point where I would even go as far as to say this notion that social media and groups and all of the ways that we sort of have defined community over the last decade has really sold its power short.
I think that's a powerful thing to say, especially in the last year and a half where people have felt so isolated. There are numerous ways now that you can connect, but it's become a way for people to really make it through, right? The last year, it's been tough on people. It's been tough on some businesses. What other trends are you seeing in social networking and just building communities online at large?
Yeah, I would think the more interesting than I would say any trend, Courtney, is for me watching just how stark the difference is between the things that we have assumed are the right way to do social media or the right way to build our personal brand and the reality of the things that work. I would go as far as to say that what is described as the best practices on social media are phenomenal best practices if the goal is to build Facebook, Google, Twitter, Instagram, obviously, which is Facebook, into $500 million or $500 billion companies or $1 trillion companies. They are not necessarily great for the individual. And if anything, just the simplest fact that for any given social media post that is organic, meaning you just post it, only 1 to 5% of the people that follow you or that you're friends with on Facebook will ever see that post. And so this notion that it's all about producing content, it's all about getting in front of people with more and more and more content, engaging content. I believe that is a model that works phenomenally well for Facebook and not so much for any of us. Now, what's the alternative? The alternative is, I would even say, sessions like this, places where it is not about renting audience, but about building a community, and specifically a community where people are able to meet and build relationships with each other. And the reason that is so important is because every opportunity to create that community that gets more valuable to every member with each new person who joins and contributes, where the connection is as much about who is here together as it is about you and me, is that creates a network where you can take on much bigger challenges. You can build new skills more effectively. You are as influenced and impacted by the stories, experiences, and ideas of other members than the content producer. I talk out at you, you talk back at me, but nobody's talking to each other. And so to me, the next 5 years, it's not even the next 10 years, it's the next 5 years are really going to be about innovation that is happening in owned and operated communities that specifically are around surfacing the most relevant members to each other, breaking the ice, playing this role of amazing host, and ultimately bringing back people to those most relevant relationships such that it is easy and natural and really fun to build new relationships where everybody is getting more value from them, from the stories, experiences, and ideas that each member is contributing, the actions people are taking, the skills that people are building, the speed by which a community like this, a community that has what's called in the technology world a network effect, that the speed that it helps people achieve the results and transformation that they want in their lives, helps people realize their full potential. Because at the end of the day, that is what we are here for. We are here to realize our full potential. We are here to align our values and our mission with how we spend our time, the actions that we take, how we show up for ourselves, our families, our friends, our colleagues, and really the impact that we want to have on the world. That is what this is all about. And so when we think about that, trying to throw ourselves and our, never-ending stream of content into a social media feed that has no rhyme or reason to it, other than to keep you there. That you compare that to how are we investing in relationships such that each node in the network, each member of the community is able to take on and realize things in their lives that seemed like a faraway dream. That is what we are here for. And so I think the bigger trend is one that says that the underlying infrastructure and the tools and where we spend our time has got to have more value to us, whether it's from a business perspective, whether it's from a health perspective, a wellness perspective, and other important interests in our lives, and that the software is going to get even better at making it not about, oh, I'm in a Facebook group, I'm going to post out to the whole thing, maybe somebody will respond, and much more precise and strategic in terms of software that actually says, hey, Courtney and Gina, you guys should know each other. Not only do you have this overlap of experience, but you have this overlap of values and goals and mentors. And because of that, we believe that as you meet and build a relationship with each other, you will both be able to benefit from it much faster than if you spend your time at a dinner party with the whole like, so do you have kids? You know, like that, I hope that is an era that is behind us, where the real power and the real energy is, how do we use software and the time that we spend in digital environments such that the conversations that we have start with a much stronger foundation.
You know, when you and I first connected, right, because we were going to be building Success Achievers community on Mighty Networks, kept trying. I remember one of our first conversations, I kept trying to compare the Mighty Network platform to something else. I said, now, is it to deliver training? Is it just content? I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And you said something that was very profound, that flipped the model on its head for me, which was the fact that it was purpose driven, right? That you're being able to use this data, connect people based on values, right? Tell us more about this kind of change of how things are done around about purpose driven. That really connected with me.
Yeah. So we every successful community, and I use the term community much broader than I think how we, you know, think about it, because in the current social media environment, it's like, oh, well, community equals Facebook group, which means content is somewhere else, because Facebook groups really do not support content the way that other platforms do, like a website or, you know, even Instagram stories or whatever that might be. Then its courses are on a different platform. Events are on a different platform. Emails on a different platform. Subscriptions are on a different platform. I'm like punching. It's like I'm in a boxing class. So you think about just this mess of other services, and it's because it's all feature or product driven. With Mighty Networks, we've essentially moved the model to start at a different place. And where we start is to say, what's your big purpose? What's the purpose of bringing people together in such a way that they can meet and build relationships with each other in pursuit of mastering something interesting or important together? So if you're coming at it from that perspective, as you described that you were coming at it from, you're like, where does it fit? You know, what do you do? And for us, we actually do a lot of different things. We have community. We have online courses. We have events. We have subscriptions. We have private messaging. We have profiles. Why do we have all of these things? Because the power is when you bring these different elements together in pursuit of that bigger purpose, in pursuit of mastery, in pursuit of learning something new and interesting, of building new practices, of navigating a rapidly changing environment or a new business or growing a business, as opposed to trying to put all of these different services together that exist in different places with duct tape, some gum, and, you know, a whole lot of sweat, blood, and tears.
Well, it makes sense to me now, right? And especially since we've got over 10,000, we've got over 7,000 folks that have
It'll
joined.
be at 10,000 soon enough.
Probably after this meeting, right? So what I think is interesting is this thread, like you mentioned, this thread that goes through whether it be training or the dialogue that's occurring is about purpose. It's about the big why. We have been able to connect with people because we're trying to make them successful and connect them to other people that will help in their professional and personal development. You've had significant growth with the number of new creators and brands and coaches that have started their own mighty networks. I think if I read the last press release, 200% year over year, revenue paid by members. I mean, how do you connect or how do you grow some of these new creators?
Well, one of the things that's really interesting is for people starting new mighty networks, 40% of them are a member, a moderator, or a host of another network. So our sort of main way that people become hosts of mighty networks, that's what we call, because it gets a little wordy to say creators, brands, and coaches every time. So we call them hosts because you're essentially hosting a community. And even if your emphasis is on online courses or events, you still are trying to connect people to each other in pursuit of this bigger purpose, in pursuit of the why, as you say. And so that for us has been the number one way that people have found a mighty network and realized, wait, as a member of this mighty network, I actually might want to create it for something else. And then from there, it's a combination of the greatest hits of online marketing, whether it's search engine optimization articles, paid search, it's a little bit of social media. It doesn't work that well for us. And we just are continuing to grow that. We grew new customers 200% in 1 year, and the growth has not slowed down.
Well, and one, it's very commendable because it is a huge idea. It's really a new idea. And as you mentioned, this is a stat I didn't know, that a lot of your hosts, not their first rodeo, right? They've done this, 40% have done this before. When you think about the success you've had, I mean, congratulations on your latest round of 50 million. And you had mentioned with this, next stage of growth, if you will, it was to bolster the creator economy. Tell us what that means. What's the creator economy?
So the creator economy is essentially this simple notion of a direct relationship with the people that you are creating for. And so what's a creator? A lot of people look at it as content creators. So that might be somebody making TikTok videos. That might also be somebody who has an online course and expertise that they are selling on the internet. And so it's basically the direct business model, as opposed to, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff for free and I'm going to make my money in advertising. So you see basically this movement to direct subscriptions, direct payments, and that is a world that Mighty Networks plays in, because we let you produce content and have a community, so that it's not just on your shoulders to produce content in that content factory, but rather bring people together, and that there is as much, if not more, value in bringing people together, bringing people to each other, and making those connections between people as the valuable aspect or asset that people are going to pay for with a digital subscription or with an online payment. And so that is the creator economy in a nutshell. And our whole focus is on how do we bring more people into that world with things that are easier to do. It is simply easier to bring 10 or 30 people together than it is to be a content factory. It is hard to create content. It's even harder to create good content. But if you can find a niche, whether that's around career, whether that's around health and wellness, whether that's around other important interests, if you can identify a niche and an ideal member, meaning who are the people that need this community the most right now, all caps, then it is actually easier to bring 10 or 30 people together. And our kind of magic number is 30 people. If you get 30 people in a community, you have something that is sustainable, that is valuable to other members, and that you have an asset that you can build on. That is magical, and it stands in stark contrast to the world of I gotta produce a bunch of content. It takes a ton of time. I'm exhausted. Oh, and please just don't remind me that 1 to 3% of people are ever going to see what I've been putting out there.
I think that's a really big deal, that this community creates the content because they have similar value, mission, goals, if you will, towards something. And, you know, when you look at, like, we had a soft launch basically last year in December. We started to talk to you and get the platform going. We launched then in Q1. We then, like I said, I just looked, we're about just over 7,000 members. And, you know, you talked to me about the content that was going to be created and how membership worked at large. And what I noticed was, it'd be interesting to see if your other customers have similar success stories, is that about 20% of the folks that we're seeing are joining as a result of referrals, right? Where you've got ambassadors that are inviting them to the group. Is that pretty common? Is that what you're seeing? And what else is successful for folks you've got on the platform?
You cut out as you were asking me that question.
Is that better? I'll ask it again. Maybe I said it fast. So no? I said, you know, we were able to really grow quickly because about 20% of our community is through ambassadors. So are you finding that similar clients that you've got, hosts that you've got on your platform, have the same success stories and are growing the same way through the ambassadors?
Yeah. So member referrals or member invitations are really, really important. Think about also what that means in terms of the work that you now, as a creator or a coach or a brand, don't have to do. So if you tap into the right big purpose and you create lightweight structure for how people are going to interact with each other, giving them a reason to come back, how you structure it is so much less work, just in terms of engagement. And then in terms of invitations, you know, it becomes a lot more obvious why somebody would want to join and who those people are that would want to join. So we see that kind of growth a lot. And, you know, it's another benefit of owning a community and having 100% of people see what you're doing and how you're doing it. There's a lot more opportunity to provide the kind of value that then turns into member referrals and member invitations.
We had
members inviting other members.
When we had talked about this, you know, Gina, everything you had said would happen, it was pretty much spot on as I watched our launch. And you said something that was also, you know, I always go back to content. And you said, Courtney, it's the community. So, you know, having community management, making sure you have the right people in there was really an emphasis, right? And so it feels like the engagement, obviously content's important, but it sounds like community's king and content's queen. Is that basically what I continue to see and what you see?
Yes and no. So what I would say is people come for the big purpose and how is the big purpose, the motivation for the community, how is that communicated? Through content, if they are not in the community. People come for the content, but they stay for the community. And I would even argue that then they not only stay for the community, but then they will invite people into the community, not your content. Content is a commodity in and of itself. It's one of the reasons why I think it's so interesting that you know, online courses are as successful as they are. It is another way to package content, but done so in a way, in a specific kind of content, which is one that leads into what somebody wants to achieve in terms of results and transformation. So I don't think about it so much as what's king and what's queen. I think about it as, if anything, you know, more concrete steps of come for the content, stay for the community, and then come for the community.
It's circular, and I do like it. You know, you look at the professional success that you've had and the fact that this is clearly something that is meaningful to you. It's something that you did because you cared about it. What was your journey like? I mean, what kind of challenges as a female entrepreneur in Silicon Valley have you faced?
Yeah, I mean, if this was an easy road, everyone would do it. And so it's not easy. I think that there is a few things that have made it possible for me to continue. One is the recognition and realization and embrace, actually, of Silicon Valley and technology, the technology industry in general, attracts the 0.00001% of the most ambitious, hungry people in the world. In the world, not just in the US, not just in California, not just in Palo Alto, but the world. So this notion that there's going to be built-in implicit fairness is kind of a joke. Like last time I checked, the goal of incredibly ambitious people in business, which, doesn't have necessarily, referees, is to figure out how are they going to create an uneven playing field? Like how are they going to create competitive advantages? So when I started just ignoring the narrative of like the meritocracy and the narrative of like, what's fair, it's not fair. Like life is not fair either, whether it's in Silicon Valley or anywhere else. I actually became much more peaceful and confident that if I used my mission, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And I think it's true for all of us in whatever it is we're taking on, especially today. That is the fuel. Like looking around and saying, am I doing better than other people? Are other people doing better than me? That's, that's the depletion of energy. So once I got really comfortable with that, then it was like, well, screw it. Like, who are my customers? How do I go spend more time with them? They're cool. Like, how do we build amazing product for them? Getting people excited about a mission and a vision and spending as little time as I possibly can on all the other BS is how I navigate it. Doesn't, like, I wish it was perfect every day. I just got off of a conversation this morning, for example, where it was the weirdest conversation, I have to say. It was this moment where people were like, it was for sort of women founders. And it was like, there's no money going to women founders. And then there were other people on the panel that were like, yeah, that's true, but fundraising has been so easy for me. Like, first of all, no one should say fundraising's been so easy for them, like, because it's not true. And even if it is true, you sound like a jerk. So in terms of thinking about just like, again, pushing the messages, pushing the narrative, pushing the, what the headlines are out of your brain or out of my brain, and just staying focused on, why do I do this? I do this because I want to live in a world where there are millions of unique and vibrant communities that have their own cultures, their own goals, their own place where people can show up. And software has done such an amazing job where they just basically look around and they're like, wow, like, I'm home. I'm home. I can be myself here. But more importantly, I can be myself in a way that I can realize my full potential, that I can see what's possible. I can navigate challenges. I can seize opportunities. I can build new practices that just have been super hard for me to do on my own. And I can take steps and take steps into the world and the life that I want to live. To me, I will bust through walls to make that reality that vision a reality. And the rest of it is kind of noise, and a lot of noise.
I think that's really good advice for this audience. If I could take and, share, grab some nuggets and make sure that, take a beat and write this down, focusing on the customer and really ignoring the noise, being able to know what your customer wants. I think that's good advice for all of us, right? I mean, it's fundamental, but people can lose that. I've never been one to truly believe in what I would consider to be a zero-sum game. I do think there's room for many of us to be successful, right? And I'm with you, having been at a startup in San Francisco, it's highly competitive. It's definitely not fair, right? One of the people, actually a mentor to me that I know is also somebody you're close to, Magdalena Niso, was with me when I was at my last company, and we had a lot of shared moments. I believed she was a real advocate. Do you find a community there of friends that you've got that are doing similar things for you?
Yes. I really want to stress, though, again, I don't think we talk nearly enough about how the starting point is not fair. Like, it's not fair. And I think that is really important. I'm glad you just said it again. So yes, and this is a place where I think that the narrative that has been built around mentors and mentorship is actually one that is selling the big picture short. That's sponsorship. Like, it's about people that are using, specifically, sponsorship is defined as people who use their political capital to provide opportunity for you or for other people. And I think that mentorship means, hey, I'm going to talk to you, but I'm not going to go out and advocate for you. I'm not going to find that next opportunity for you. I'm not going to turn around and say to somebody like, you need to hire Courtney. Like, Courtney is the person that you need to bring on board to this. That's sponsorship, and it's advocacy. And I think that we all need more advocates. Again, we just raised $50 million. There was one person who probably did more to make that happen, and it was not me. I mean, I had something to do with it, obviously, but it was a sponsor of mine, somebody who has used his political capital over the last 10 years to go to bat for me. And those people at those moments are some of the most important people to build into your network. And I would say that they are more important to cultivate than mentors. People that are like, oh, I'll talk to you and be like, Courtney, I'm so sorry. Or like, here's an idea. Like, it takes the same amount of time. Now, again, you can have some, but it takes the same amount of time to invest in mentors as it does to invest in sponsors. And sponsor relationships are going to always be more valuable just because you are essentially amplifying or leveraging more and more political capital towards what you want to do and how you want to do it. So I don't know if that totally answered the question, but I think it's actually something that we don't talk nearly enough.
It's a good distinction. I would think of a mentor, like you said, or a coach that, is helping you unpack situations, right? But not necessarily like solving a problem, or like you said, utilizing their own, personal capital, political capital to get you somewhere. This audience, we use the word sponsorship a lot. That's how people join their teams. It
Right.
means something to this audience. It's another, I'd say, kind of quotable moment, which is the sponsorship is what matters, right? It's the people that are going to make the call for you, that are going to help you find that answer, not just kind of help you figure it out. So I think that is a perfect example of a lesson that would resonate with this group, because that's what we consider sponsorship as well. I'm glad that you mentioned the distinction there, because it's unbelievably important. This concept of, if you get to the top, sending the elevator down for some other folks, right? Helping people out. I think it's extremely important. Our audience, is, like I mentioned before, our shareholders, a lot of folks out there, agents. We consider this term of kind of solopreneur. A lot of entrepreneurs, as these folks are starting their businesses, right? What kind of advice do you have for being an entrepreneur, right? I mean, you are a successful entrepreneur that has, I don't want to say beaten the odds, but to be fair, in Silicon Valley, beaten the odds.
It's a good question. So here's how I think about it. There's, this whole concept of first principles, like going back to first principles. This is a situation where I regularly go back to first principles. every morning I wake up and I grab myself a little latte, and literally I grab computer paper and a pen, and I just start writing. And whatever sort of I thought about overnight or new ideas I have in the morning, I happen to be an early bird, and like my brain's moving a million miles an hour first thing in the morning. And some people are night owls, you could do the same thing. The reason I think this is important is when I come back to the idea of what does it mean, and I want to actually be really clear in the distinction between solo entrepreneur or solopreneur and entrepreneur. As a solopreneur, I think when you go back to first principles, it is, what is my mission? Because it's harder to be a solopreneur. It just is. So you got to go back to like, what is that fuel? What is that source of fuel? And how am I replenishing it? And I don't mean replenishing it with like getting a massage. I mean replenishing it with like that motivation. It doesn't mean you're not taking a break, but like, what is it that is the mission for why you do what you do? And I think it's really important. So that's sort of the almost a mantra of understanding what is that mission, what is that why, what is that big purpose. The second thing then is, where and how do you need to have influence? What is going to help, like, what is that goal? You know, I think about it as like your year in the life. Where do you want to be in 12 months and how do you work backwards? What can you do in 12 months that you can't do today? And then it starts to be about the network. It starts to be about who is in your network. Because again, whether it's to find customers, whether it is to build customer relationships, that's a network. Whether it's your team or, you know, the people who are around you that ensure that you can get your mission realized. And then, you know, what are those sponsors, or what are those sources of capital, or what are those other things and people that matter? And maybe that's because they fill the customer, that might be because they fill that team, those team buckets, but it's how is your network working together? And then the last piece is, and how do I get more leverage out of this model? There's so much, again, just going back to like ignoring the noise around hustle culture and like, you got to grind it out and it's all about hard work. That to me is part of the challenge of this content factory model. You know, I think it's going to be the death of the creator economy if people are not very careful. The goal is to work hard, but work smart. So looking at how are you getting leverage? And by the way, this is easier. The reason I'm saying this is like, I'm not always great at this. There are some days in some ways where I'm like, I'll just do it, versus asking myself the question, are there other ways for me to get this done? And what is the highest and best use of, you know, the hour after this? And how am I also going back and looking at my calendar and saying, how did I do this week? Like, what was good? What was not? What do I know today that I didn't know a week ago? And building in some of these regular practices, especially as a solo entrepreneur, is really valuable, because it's how you're going to get, and how any of us get, leverage towards our ultimate mission, which is how we build fuel and build practices that allow us to have a larger and bigger impact, realize our full potential, achieve the results and transformation that we want to have in our lives, and ultimately be able to turn ideas into results. Like, and that is what we like as a human being. That is like the coolest thing ever. It's like to take something that's like, well, what if we went and did this? And then you do it, or it becomes a thing. Like, that's why we do what we do. That's the whole point of being an entrepreneur. It's like creating something that and you know, there's a little bit of ego involved in all of this. It's like, well, that thing that now exists, you know, was something that just started in my brain, or I could just picture it, or whatever that might be. Doesn't, you know, that to me is all the result of breaking life down into a series of, what is the What is the big purpose? What are the practices? What are the results that are generated from those practices, and how do you rinse and repeat in a way that represents progress, movement, new things to take on, and a feeling of I am going somewhere new that I haven't been before.
So if I recap that, and that's, I mean, this is a model that works, I think, universally, but I don't think I've had it outlined in that way. So just for the audience, it's remembering why you're doing this, right? It's thinking 12 months out, right? Kind of having this longer term vision or thinking. It's being really clear on, your network. How are they going to help you? How are you leveraging the model, right? And then Gina.
And how are you bringing value to them as well?
Absolutely. I mean, it cannot always be, there's relationships that are transactional and there's relationships that aren't. I think when you're in a transactional relationship, right? And for me, it's about finding people where the relationship is much deeper. I want to get to know them on a different level. And it's, it's driving you forward. And you're right. The network is going to help you get there. And then being reflective. That was kind of the last piece. It's kind of the circle of did I do the best I could have in the last week? Were the things that maybe someone else could have helped me achieve, or I could have helped someone else achieve, coming back to that network? Right. And I think about those words and the amount of kind of energy it takes to propel people, but a lot of it's internal, right? A lot of what drives somebody is kind of inherently there sometimes. How do you, and this is one of those questions, I don't know if I believe in work-life balance. I believe you can harmonize some things, but how do you view being able to kind of fill up your cup again, if you will, and keep moving when you have this colossal business model that's so new that you're moving forward with?
Yeah. I think it's about work-life integration. I know that that's kind of a cliche to say. I've also, though, to be really clear, I've made trade-offs, I'm not trying to do it all. I am trying to do this one thing extraordinarily well. And I keep my personal life really simple. It's pretty boring. And in fact, actually, I get really annoyed when I am talking to somebody, certainly in fundraising, when people are like, okay, do you have everything in your head and it's all perfect and blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, they're like, so what do you do for fun? What? And I was like, do I sound like I have a lot of time for to also then have some hobby? So I'm like, I read, I sleep, watch TV, go on a hike, hang out with my husband, so I think that the key thing is, if any of us are constantly looking to work smarter, to not take it all on ourselves, there is time and space for the things that bring us joy and bring us purpose. So, when I think about, family, family's going to be there when you're dying. They're with you in your death, but it is an important point and an important aspect of a rich, vibrant, full life. And it also, for many of us, is the reason we do something, to allow for and create the space and time to grow a beautiful family that is rich. So the key thing, I think, is not to try to do everything perfectly. Pick the chapter that you're in and embrace it. Embrace the chapter you're in. And let your energy guide you. So finding what those sources of energy are, understanding when you're going to be depleted of that energy and how you're going to fill your tank again, and what fills your tank, is probably some of the most important knowledge and personal insight that any of us can have. And I think so many of the things that are chalked up to self-care today are just, they're masking the things that truly give us energy and invigoration and helping us find flow, and staying true to what the real things are versus the things that are the quick fixes. There are no quick fixes. It's about investing in a long-term mission and investing in and having clarity around your values and investing in practices that bring you joy and energy.
Just listening to you, tell very directly the fact that there are trade-offs when you have this big of a focus and you're doing what you're doing to become successful. And this concept that I heard when you were speaking about, family's important, but yours was about kind of not overcomplicating your situation by make sure you're focused on what you're focused on and what's going to give you energy back. I think that's hugely good advice for the crew that we've got out here in the audience today. And you've said, then focus on your next chapter. I know we're at time right now, but if you had to sum up just to kind of put a bow on our conversation, what's the next chapter for you?
Creating Mighty Network's next chapter to be massive.
Gail, right on. I love it. So let's give a round of applause if you can out there, make some noise. Gina, thank you so much for today. This was extremely valuable and I appreciate having you here today. Thank you for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thanks guys. See you later.
Wow, what a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for being here again. Do not forget, we still have more breakouts that are available. So in the go-to menu, you can go into the expo hall and breakout tracks and find various breakout sessions there. And then do not forget to join us back here in the main auditorium at 1:30 Pacific time for our final keynote wrap-up of the day with Mr. Tim Story. Thank you again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you at 1:30.